Say, man, you be seated.
Amen.
Mr. Thomas, I need you to find 2 Kings, the 5th chapter. Those of you got your Bibles, I'd like for y'all to find 2 Kings.
5th chapter.
5th chapter.
What verse?
First 10 verses.
First 10 verses?
First 10 verses.
2 Kings chapter 5, first 10 verses. And it reads, Now Naaman, captain of the host of the king of Syria, Now Naaman, captain of the host of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master and honorable, because by him the Lord had given deliverance unto Syria. He was also a mighty man in valor, but he was a leper. And the Syrians had gone out by companies and had brought away captive out of the land of Israel a little maid. She waited on Naaman's wife. And she said unto her mistress, Would God my Lord wherewith the prophet that is in Samaria, for he would recover him of his leprosy. And one went in and told his Lord, saying, Thus and thus said the maid, that it is of the land of Israel. And the king of Syria said, Go, and I will send a letter unto the king of Israel. And he departed and took with him 10 talents of silver, and 6,000 pieces of gold, and 10 changes of raiment. And he brought the letter to the king of Israel, saying, Now when this letter is to come unto thee, behold, I have therewith sent Naaman, my servant, to thee, that thou mayest recover him of his leprosy. And it came to pass, when the king of Israel had read the letter, and he had rent his clothes, and said, Am I God, to kill and to make alive, that this man doth send unto me to recover a man of his leprosy? Wherefore consider, I pray ye, and see how he seeketh a quarrel against me. And it was so, when Elijah, the man of God, had heard that the king of Israel had rent his clothes, that he sent to the king, saying, Wherefore hast thou rent thy clothes? Let him come now to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel. So Naaman came with his horses and with his chariot, and stood at the door of the house of Elisha. And Elisha sent a messenger unto him, saying, Go and wash in Jordan 7 times, and thy flesh shall come again to thee, and thou shalt be clean. Amen. May the Lord add a blessing to the readers, doers, and hearers of his holy word.
Amen again.
Amen.
Put your mind on verse 2 for me just a second. The bands of raiders from Aram had gone out and taken captive a young girl. Everybody say young girl.
Young girl.
From Israel. And she served Naaman's wife. She said to her master, If only my master would see the prophet who is in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy.
Amen. Amen.
Father God, touch right now in a mighty way. We thank you for Minister Ari, and we thank you for the word.
Yes, Lord.
That she taught. Father God, move in me now.
Right now, Father.
For I know, Father, without your grace and your mercy,
yes,
I would not be worthy to stand here and tell somebody about a risen Savior.
Yes.
Father God, help me,
Such
oh Father, to open up the light of your word. Oh Father God, remove me now from me. Invest in me, Father, the power of your Holy Ghost,
Yes, Lord.
that I might speak a word whereby that some dying man, woman, or child might come out of darkness on this rainy Sunday morning and move to the marvelous light. These are the prayers we pray now. In Jesus' mighty name. Well, I wish somebody would tell my master about my preaching. Oftentimes, I went on the air yesterday because so many folk are asking, what is the church doing? Why isn't the church doing more? And I went on the air, I really had this message in mind, but I said, I wonder why some of the church members don't come on the air and say what their pastor is doing. Say what their ministers are doing. Say what their church is doing. All right. Because so many folk think that ministers and preachers are not doing anything. I'm reminded of Frederick Douglass, the great emancipator, and before Reconstruction was the first black man to ever throw his hat into the ring to be the vice president of the United States. Frederick Douglass was a preacher. Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman said that, well, actually she is given the fame of saving more people out of slavery than any other human in America. And Harriet Tubman said, I could have saved more if they'd only believed that they were slaves. I wish I had somebody else. John Brown took the violent approach. And it reminded me so much of what they did over in South Africa, because South Africa was much worse than America. But they had a group called the ACN that would come in and cut the throats of black women and babies. I wish I had me somebody, white men. And they put a scare into that white man overnight. And that white man took a man out of prison and voted him in as the president of South Africa. I wish I had somebody. Vernon Johns, who took over the largest black church in New York. Howard Thurman, that great 20th century prophet. He was a preacher. Martin Luther King, who said, I have a dream. I may not get there with you, but I've been to the mountaintop. Just a few days ago, I saw William Barber on TV speaking about the injustices that's happening and the deaths that's going on with folk in the church. Frederick Douglass Haynes, he's over Eastern Star every year, and he does a conference, great preacher. Jeffrey Johnson, think what you want, but a young man that came through here, got started here in 1978, and now got 4 or 5 churches, and 4 or 5 churches that he has established with 200 members or more. Come on now. Amen. A preacher. When I just stop and think about it, and I think about Dr. Daly over in Hallville, and Dr. Andrews there at Mount Zion, Dr. Brown at St. John. We have so many things. One of the reasons that folk are leaving the church, Brother Jeff, and not coming to church, because the church is the only unit that does not advertise itself. Come on now. I mean, when places wasn't open on Sunday, And they had bootleggers. I wish I had somebody, and folk would be getting out of church going to the bootlegger. You know, and now, you know, I remember when they used to have football on Saturday, not on Sunday. You know, and now they done changed because of publicity. But the church is the only organization that doesn't talk about itself. You know, and that's a strange thing. And it brings me back to this young girl, Jeff. This young girl who had been taken captive. Because back then, Syria, at first, when David was king, Israel was, man, they were conquering everything. Didn't nobody fool with them. But when David moved on and Solomon came, and then the generations after Solomon, all of a sudden the Syrians started to take back, and what they were doing, they would do raids over into Jerusalem, raids into Judah, and they would grab people. They were trying to provoke something, and they had captured this young girl. And this young girl in captivity now, instead of taking a negative view, she took a positive view. See, because a whole lot of folk, like you were saying, the one was talking about today, you know, that young girl could say, well, shoot, it ain't no God in Israel. I mean, if it was God in Israel, why am I over here enslaved, working for somebody? Come on now. And working in a household where somebody got leprosy. Come on now. Because, you see, back then, leprosy was like when we first got introduced to AIDS, and everybody was scared. Somebody say HIV, buddy. Man, everybody want to get it. But now, leprosy, now, because they kind of got AIDS under control, because we look at what's it in the Magic Johnson. You had it right in my head. And, you know, he lived 25, 30 years beyond AIDS. So now it's that kind of skin-eating disease. You know, where a man just signed a contract for $200 million and opened up a Coke that he didn't clean the top off of and called it skin-eating disease. I wish I had somebody. That young girl sitting there at her master's house and seeing her master, a prominent, valiant man, a warrior of warriors, great man. But at the end of that verse that Bishop read, it said, but he wasn't left. And this young girl had such a prominence about herself. She told his wife, Sister Paula, she said, I wish somebody would tell my master about my preacher, oh, good God Almighty, who is back in Israel. Because my preacher could heal him of his leprosy. Oh, man, y'all missed the shout then. I'm going to say that again. A young girl taken captive in another country, working for a man's wife, had the audacity and faith and hope and trust in the God that her preacher preached about. Even though she was in captivity, even though a band had come over and raided them and got her and took her back, and now she's a servant. And she looked at her master with leprosy. And you see, you got to understand that he wasn't a leper. He had leprosy. He only had a spot. And you can find that out after you read it. See, because a person with full-blown leprosy, they couldn't stay in the camp. They couldn't be in the army. They couldn't come in the city. And they had to stand afar off because it was a death sentence. And they had to cry out, unclean! Unclean! But he hadn't got to that part because he only had a spot. And when you read it, when we get down to this, as I finish, I'm going to come to it. So here she was, so convincing to his wife, that his wife, Bishop, told him, said, there is a prophet over in Israel where we've been skipping and hopping and snatching people and stealing them and raiding and going on. But there's a prophet that can heal you. I know you only got a spot now on your head. But we know leprosy is going to spread. So if you can, but you know when somebody's sick, boy, they don't even believe in the witch doctor. I wish I had me somebody. When you sick, see, it ain't like it's your brother or your sister or your mother or your auntie or your friend. But when sickness turns into your address, come on now, you start reaching for a whole lot of things. Well, I need somebody, well, honey, just pray about it. Honey, you need to fast. But when sickness stops at your door, not your sister, not your mama, not your daddy, not your brother, not your cousin, not your niece or your nephew, but when it stops at your door, it becomes a serious matter. Come on now.
Amen.
And so the wife said it to Naaman, and Naaman went to the king. And Naaman went to the king because the king loved Naaman. Let me show you how God works even in other villages. Because God had made Naaman to win the wars for the king. He got many victories. He was a man of valor. Come on now. He was respected. But he was a leper. Help me somebody. And so she went, and he had the audacity to go to the king. Said, listen, there is, from what my wife tells me, there is a preacher. He's the pastor of that little girl that works in my house. And she said that he could heal me of this leprosy. Now understand one thing now, leprosy, my brother, was something that was incurable. There was no healing for leprosy. And so within that situation, the king turned around and said, well, wait a minute. Go. He didn't even think about it. Now let me tell you something. I was listening, and you know, it's really good to listen. This young preacher in Washington, D.C., 37 years old, and he is now pastoring President Obama and his wife and family. And so this preacher was asking and said, well, how did you get to be the pastor of the president? And to where the president now comes and asks you for advice. What did you? He said, well, it really wasn't me. He said, Michelle Obama took her two girls to the beauty shop to get their hair done, Sister Paula. And while they were at the shop, the hairstylist that was doing their hair said, Michelle was looking through a magazine and she said, you know, I'm trying to find, I'd like to go visit a church this Sunday that has a good choir. I really want you to hear the rhythm of a good choir. Because we've been going, she didn't say that, but we've been going to all of these pontificating choir churches. And said, so I just want to hear some good gospel music. So the preacher said, well, wait a minute. Said, no, y'all need to come and hear my pastor preach. So I got a pastor that preaches. And so he said, and that's how they came. They didn't come through me. They didn't come through hearing me preach on the radio or the TV. He said, a beautician, a little beautician, who is a member of this church, told Michelle Obama, who wanted to hear some music, about how I preached.
Amen.
The king said, okay, go. Said, but now before you go, because you know we've been over there raiding. You know we've been acting a fool with them. So before you go, look what the word says that they told him to do. Said, listen, here, take 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, 10 sets of clothes, Take him over there and give him to the king for me. So he pulls up to the king's house, the king's castle, and with all this stuff. And he says to the king, he said, here, and he said, take this letter. And so when he gave the king the letter, he said, a little girl told my man of valor that you could heal my servant of leprosy. And the king rent his clothes. Now see, it's a whole difference now. It said he rent his robes with an S on it. And he must have rent them so violently that everybody in Israel and Judah heard about the king renting his clothes. And he said, who am I? Am I God? Y'all need to read this. That I can give life or take life? Nobody can heal nobody of leprosy. And he rent his clothes and went in the morning and praying, and like Marcia does for me a lot of times, fasting.
Amen. Amen.
A lot of times, weeks later, she said, I come in and I said, woo, look what God has done. She said, I've been fasting for that.
Amen.
Come on now.
Amen.
You know, so to cut to the chase, Elisha heard, Jeff, that the king had tore his robes. So Elisha told Gehazi, go and tell the king, ask the king, why you rent your clothes? It's right there in the word. Said, why, what you rent your clothes for? Said, you need somebody to heal somebody from leprosy? Send him to me. And I'll heal him. Didn't say I'm going to pray about it. Didn't say I'm going to have to fast. Didn't say I'm going to have to cross my legs and turn around 3 times and hop on one leg and jump up and down and all that. Said, send him to me. And I'm going to heal him.
That's right. That's the word.
Naaman and all his caravan pulled up. Elisha, this preacher, this premier preacher, this healer, wouldn't even come outside, little Tommy. He sent Gehazi out. Said, go tell him to go dip in the Jordan 7 times. And he'll be healed. Good God. And the word says, here's a man with AIDS, got mad, and traveled all the way from another country, come to a man's house. The man didn't take none of his clothes, didn't take none of his silver, none of his gold. But now he got mad because the man didn't come out. And he got upset. And here's how we know that he only had a spot, prophetess. Because you know what he said? He said, now I really thought, Jeff, that this preacher, I done traveled all this way. I thought that he would run and jump up, jump over me and wave his hand. It's right in the Bible. And wave his hand over this spot. And call on the name of his God and I'd be healed. But he didn't even come out. He didn't have enough respect for me to come out and work 40 hours this week and then get me cleaned out. And told me to go dip in that nasty journey. When there are better rivers back in my country, I can dip in some clean water. Don't tell me to go dip. No. It's right there in the word. He was wrong. remember how Pluto do? Y'all don't watch cartoons. You know with Popeye when he hear something. I can hear him now, Jeff. When your boy's been messed up.